Loss shame spiral. My name is Amy Ballantyne. Welcome to Power to the People Pleasers. I'm so excited to have my guest Nancy Bruce here. Nancy, welcome.
Thank you, Amy.
We're digging into a hot topic today, the spiral, the shame spiral, all around weight loss. But as you know, I'd love to hear for you joining me on Power to the People Pleasers. This is about empowering those of us who are on the path to recovery, right? Not always making everything about pleasing everyone. Have you ever had a time where you were a people pleaser, and how did that show up in your life?
Totally a people pleaser. I think women in general are kind of always looking for the approval of everybody else. And we do that in everything that we're doing. We talk about weight loss, and you wouldn't believe how many people I come across in coaching that they're actually afraid to lose weight because they're going to leave somebody behind or make somebody uncomfortable, or so they're holding on to the weight just to appease the people that they're hanging with.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah,
hmm And is that something you relate to, or how
absolutely.
what's your part of the story? You laughed
Yeah,
at the question.
absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely, because when you think about it, there's the connections of, I had friends that, they were self-sabotaging, and that's kind of what we had in common together. So we wouldn't work out, we would eat, we would drink. There was all of those things that we had in common. So, basically to keep that relationship or those relationships, I would keep doing the same thing because I didn't want to leave them behind. I wanted to appease them. And I
Mm.
thought, well, they might not like me or might not want to join my journey if I change,
Mhm. Wow,
right?
that's big. That's big. So you are now practicing as a confidence and emotional eating coach, and I'd love to know, you know, you get to the root of this emotional and mindless eating. How are you doing this? How do you help people with this?
So I use a bunch of different techniques to try to get people to the root. So, for food cravings, we want to go to, there usually there's usually a positive feeling attached to a certain food. And
Mhm.
it's actually a person or an event or a situation that the emotion is attached to.
Mm.
So those are cravings. And then emotional eating is, I mean, there's more to it than this, but usually it's because we're trying to move away from a feeling.
Mm.
And some people will say, well, it's mindless and I'm numb, but it's like if you think about it, that's still a feeling. You're numbing out from something. So it's still a feeling. So we need to get really up close and personal with that numbness and that mindlessness. Why are you not thinking about loving yourself with the food that you're choosing? If you're eating mindlessly, then you're not showing yourself love. What emotion are you trying to move away from?
Mm.
And then, another one talking about appeasing. How many of us grew up that our parents would fill our plates
Mm.
and we had to finish it. Like
Mhm.
you could not leave the table until you finished your plate. And we're still doing that
Mhm.
because it's offensive to the cook. It's still offensive to our parents back in our childhood. So we're actually finishing our plate or finishing the bag of chips or finishing whatever to still appease our parents at whatever age we're at.
Yeah. And I mean, the other layer for me was the guilt around, well, there's so many people who don't have food, right?
Yes, the starving people in the world.
Yeah.
And so the shame comes down to the shame.
Mm.
So we're appeasing the shame because we don't want to be shamed.
Mhm.
Sadly, we just carry that with us
Mhm.
after we leave our parents' home. And, I would hazard to guess that some of us, instill that in our kids as well.
Mhm. Yeah.
Because we know the expensive food. We know the work that goes into planning and making the meals and doing the grocery shopping, and we just want our kids to eat something healthy. So
Mhm.
we kind of continue with that shame cycle.
Mhm. So what is a better way? What is a better way to talk about, let's talk about the dinner plate because we're talking about weight loss. So what is a better way?
So for our kids or for ourselves?
For ourselves to talk about it and role model it to our kids.
Yeah. So I would, what I would want to do is clear this block with somebody first.
Mm,
What is it? And I, of course, use the modality of emotional freedom technique, which is tapping. And
mhm,
that helps to take us to that core because the brain, the amygdala of the brain, it senses that this is still going on. It doesn't have a sense of time. So every time we sit down to eat, we're still in our parents' home. So we
wow.
need to go back to being in our parents' home and go through all of the emotions that we felt, you know, when we had to finish our plate.
Mhm,
There could be the guilt, the shame. What if, you connected this to your mother's love? And if you
mm,
didn't finish your
mm,
plate, you were rejecting your mother's love. There's just so many layers to it.
mhm,
So, I mean, what I try to do with my kids is, is not shame them into, obviously, not shame them into finishing their plate, but at least trying the food that I've made.
mhm,
That's all I ask is just try the food that I make. And, you know, if you don't like it, that's fine, but I really want you to give it a go.
mhm,
And they can easily push their food away,
mhm,
very easily throw food out and push it away. It's like, no, I'm full because they're in tune with that.
mhm.
We've been taught to shut that down.
Yeah, yeah, and helping people to notice their fullness cues and not connect to these other emotional
Hmm.
things. Yeah.
And how many of us, because we knew we had to finish our plate, even though we weren't hungry or we didn't like it, are doing that mindless eating. We're shoveling it in, not paying attention even to whether we like it
Mhm.
and whether or not we're full,
Yeah, yeah.
right? So we've just shut that down completely. So we're eating mindlessly at every meal.
Mhm.
Two
Okay,
piece
so
of bread.
let's talk about this is one of the ways to get off the shame spiral, right?
Mhm.
Is really getting mindful with our eating. So let's be really practical. What steps would someone who's on this spiral take to be more mindful at the dinner table?
First of all, I suggest just slow down.
Mhm.
Slow down. Put your fork down after every bite.
Mm,
Chew the food. Am I satisfied? Am I enjoying this? Have I had enough? Just slow it down.
mhm,
Pay attention to what's going on around you. Are you angry? Are you
mm,
shoveling it in because you're angry? What are you feeling when you're sitting down to eating? What
mhm.
emotions are you bringing to the table and the plate?
Wow.
And just slow down. Did you have, a crappy day? Are you stressed out? Okay, just slow down and breathe. Of course, I would say tap, but just slow
Mhm.
down and
Tap.
breathe. Just slow down and breathe and let the day go. Okay,
Mhm,
now be present at the table. Be present with the people that are at the table
mhm.
and slow down.
Yeah, and so your clients, how does tapping play into it? Are they doing tapping while they're eating? Is that
I do suggest that. Sorry, I do suggest that. Um, and they might, but I don't. The last thing somebody that's mindlessly eating or had a stressful day, they're going to say, yeah, right, Nancy, I'm going to stop and tap right now. No, it's
Mhm,
not going to happen. So it's them being mindful, but then it's also them bringing that information to me. What was going on? Let's clear through those emotions. What has been triggered here? What has
mhm,
been triggered throughout your day that you're having to eat mindlessly or just shovel it in and just
mhm.
kind of keep on, uh, as you know, peeling that onion, trying to
Yes.
figure out, okay, what is at the core of this? Why are you shoveling this food in? Why are you eating mindlessly?
Mhm. I really appreciate your sharing such specific things. What about cravings? How does this play in to the shoveling food in?
So, cravings, because you're actually moving toward a feeling. So, for instance, for me, was I used to love chips and dip. It used to be like it couldn't be in the house because if it was in the house, I was eating the whole bag of chips and the whole container of dip.
Mhm.
oftentimes in one sitting. And what I came to realize was this was a connection that I had with my dad, that
Wow.
we both loved chips and dip. It was peaceful. There was no fighting, and we both just really, really enjoyed the chips and the dip. However, we were actually just enjoying the peace between us
Mm.
and that we were doing something together.
You just
So
gave me goosebumps, Nancy.
yeah, so every time that it's like I wanna feel a certain way, so I wanted to feel connected, I wanted to feel loved, I would go for the chips and dip
Mhm.
because that would remind me of my dad
Mhm.
and that connection that we had. So it, of course, that's different for everybody, but I've
Mhm.
done this cravings technique with so many people, and they report that, you know what, I can have that food in the house and it doesn't bother me at all. I can have chips and dip in the house and totally forget about it now because
Mhm.
it's not calling my name. And that's what cravings will do. They'll
Mhm.
call your name because you're trying to connect to a loved one or a certain situation, or you're just going to crave it. So, for instance, maybe somebody has a craving that they, chips, for example, or popcorn. It's like they eat popcorn watching TV after they put their kids to bed.
Mhm.
This signifies their downtime.
Yeah.
I can finally relax now. But it's not the popcorn or the chips, it's actually that time that they're
Mm.
connected to. Or maybe it's something that they were watching on TV, that the show on the TV brought them happy emotions.
Mhm.
All of the feelings went into the food, and it still does because that
Yeah.
signifies, "Okay, I'm done, the kids are in bed, I can sit and enjoy and watch TV now." So you can see how,
Mhm.
multi-layered it is for different people.
Very multi-layered. Wow.
Mhm.
Wow. When we were, prepping for this conversation, you said something about grandma's apple pie.
Yes.
Mhm. Yeah, that's like another layer too, right?
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, because with grandma's apple pie, that with grandma, she absolutely went out of her way to bake that pie for you.
Mm.
Absolutely. And that was out of her love to bake that pie because she loves you so much. She took the time out of her day to bake this apple pie. And then she wants to share it with you. Think of all of those emotions,
Mhm.
all of those positive emotions. How are you going to say no to apple pie? Even after grandma's gone, how are you ever going to say no to apple pie? Because you're going to connect it to grandma and all of those positive feelings. And it's like, this was my source of love.
Mm.
So it feels like you're showing yourself love by eating the apple pie. We know how we feel afterwards, but at the time, it feels like we're giving ourselves love. So
Yeah.
that's a true craving because you're making all of those positive connections. Now,
So go
it
ahead.
does sorry, Amy, it doesn't mean that, for instance, um, that when you're emotional eating and moving away from a feeling that you wouldn't eat the apple pie.
Mhm.
It would just have a different pull to it. So
Mhm.
it wouldn't be like calling your name, like, "Come and get me, come and get me." It would be your brain saying, I've had a stressful day. Apple pie usually does the thing for me. I'm gonna have some apple pie because there's some apple pie here.
Mhm.
So that can be cravings and emotional eating tied into one. But usually, when you kill the craving, the food has a different pull to it.
Mhm. And so how do you disconnect the all of the emotions?
Mhm. So I do that through emotional freedom
Right, through tapping.
technique, right? Through tapping and having people talk about it and really becoming aware, is this emotional eating or is this cravings?
Yeah.
And then through the tapping, we will connect to that this is not about the food,
Wow.
but all of our feelings went into the food.
Mhm.
And, there's also, we might be eating to self-sabotage.
Mm.
We, and because that's basically the only voice we had
Yep.
in some situations is, I can't say anything, so I'm just gonna, shove food into my mouth, and basically they're gonna judge me because I'm heavy and I'm struggling with my weight, but it's my way of saying, "Screw you. I don't have a voice,
Mhm.
so screw you." And that's where self-sabotage kinda kicks in.
Wow, so many layers, so many layers. Now, you
Absolutely.
mentioned that you are helping individuals with confidence, and I
Yes.
see it like, of course, you would have more confidence when you can release some of these things holding on to you that are, impacting your life. Tell me about how this plays in with the idea of self love a little bit more. I know you've dropped that a few times in our
Mhm,
conversation, but
mhm.
where is this showing up for you with your clients right now?
So, because they start to take control over the food, but not in a punishment controlling way, in
Mm,
I want to eat to be healthy, I'm not going to, it changes the mindset of I hate myself, therefore I'm going to go on a diet and work out.
mhm,
It changes it to I love myself,
mhm,
therefore I'm eating healthy and I'm choosing positive sources of exercise. I'm not pushing myself over. I'm listening to myself the way I wanted to be listened to by others throughout my life. So it changes your relationship with yourself, and it really helps you to tune in and become grounded.
amazing, amazing. So, lots of things. Is there anything else that you want to share when it comes to this idea of being in the shame spiral around weight loss? Is there anything we didn't touch on?
I'd really like people to an exercise that I take through my clients through that's really powerful is, just sit with yourself and pay attention to what you're saying.
Mm,
Just sit quietly and listen to what you're saying. I just heard that we have 12 to 60,000 thoughts per day.
mhm.
On average, we have at least 80% of them that are negative. That makes you
Yeah,
want to cry, right?
sad. It's so sad.
Exactly.
Mhm,
So I would really encourage people just to tune into that. And I do tapping around that as well to listen to that inner voice, listen to what it's saying, call that inner voice out, and turn
mhm,
it around to I'm doing the best I can.
mhm,
I'm not a bad person. I'm not a bad person because I'm carrying 10, 20, 30, 40 extra pounds. I'm still me inside. This
mhm,
is just showing myself that I've got some hurts and traumas that I need to work through. It's
mhm,
showing up. So it's actually a gift, not a negative thing. So if we're carrying extra weight, it's like, okay, how can I show myself some love? Where do
mhm,
I need to look to give myself some love? We'll start by listening to that inner voice. So what are you saying? If
mhm,
we talk to our kids the way we talk to ourselves in our mind, we'd never ever be able to encourage them to do anything and they would hate us.
mhm.
So, guess what? That's exactly how we're responding.
Yeah.
So, we need to start to change that inner voice. I mean, I know it's there to keep us safe. In
Mhm,
some instances, it's there to keep us safe. It is just overcompensated. It's
mhm,
taken over the people that have shamed us. So that we don't feel the hurt from that shame from those people, we have actually taken that on and gone further with the way that we shame ourselves.
mhm.
That's it. I'll hurt myself more than what they can so that their words can't hurt me.
Wow.
That's pretty deep, eh?
Yeah.
And that's what's going on in our mind like 24/7. We need to change that voice. We totally
Yes.
need to change that voice.
Yes.
Mhm.
Wow, what a powerful conversation. Thank you. Thank you for being here today, Nancy.
Thank
Thank you.
you for having me.
And for all the listeners, I invite you to follow Nancy on Instagram at at Tapping with Nancy. And her website is inspiringwellbeing.ca to connect with Nancy Bruce, the confidence and emotional eating coach. It's been so great to be with you here today.
Thank you.
And for all of our listeners, I want to thank you again for tuning in to Power to the People Pleasers. I hope you enjoyed this great conversation and invite you to check out the next episode coming soon.